Hello, guys. Welcome to the 11th episode of Polarising Dialogue. This is me, Sakhi Jain, introducing for the first time. And we're very excited for this particular video because this was the topic that we're going to be taking up today. Is the topic that we discussed the first time we even thought of making a podcast. It was more like a trial session, and we never posted that because it was basically a trial session, right? So yes, I feel like we're more prepared. We were novices back then, not that we're pros now. But so we're going to be discussing dietary lifestyles, or I would rather say veganism versus meat eating. Like, I think you probably would have guessed, Madhesh, our big meat eater,
YouTuber
no,
as a meeting.
is a meat eater. I am not a vegan, but I'm a
You're a
vegetarian,
Jain.
and I'm a Jain. Yeah. So I eat vegetarian. I'm not a vegan yet, but yes, that's what we're going to be discussing, and we hope to make this a discussion and not a debate. So I would like to start with a question to Madhesh, and that would be, Madhesh, I think I can call you a health freak, or others
Sure.
would probably guess so. So, how would you like? What would you say? How does your diet impact your workouts, or how do you plan your diet on the basis of your workout regime, or in general, how do you think it matters?
First of all, lovely introduction. I think I'm trained you pretty well on that. She
Oh,
mimicked whatever I
sure.
do, whatever I do very often. She mimicked that very well. And of course, as you said very rightfully, that I am a meat eater and I love meat. You guys can't like tell that. I mean, obviously you can't tell that. I didn't outright say that anywhere. But yeah, when it comes to the health free comment, I would I would tend to refute it instantly, but actually thinking about it, I am more like a health conscious person compared to like the normal individual. I'm like focused on optimizing sleep, optimizing brain health, gut health, and all these kinds of things. So of course, I am like a health freak, I guess you can say. Um, but the diet that I personally have absolutely loved, if you guys, I mean, it's kind of obvious, is meat eating. And I want to be very specific when it comes to what kind of meat or what kind of non vegetarian diet I'm referring to. The diet that, okay, I think it's important when talking about dietary lifestyles to divide this topic into two: moral debate or moral discussions, and the discussions about which one is healthier. I think on the moral side, a point can be made for either, and I think we can discuss it, and I think we can find common ground on it. But when it comes to the health side of it, I believe it's a no brainer of sorts, because I personally believe that meat and everything non-vegetarian, I believe the nutrients and the quality of protein and the quality of nutrients that you just get from these products is subpar. It cannot be compared to products. It cannot be compared to vegetarian products, let alone like vegan products. Like for example, I know when I say that outright, people will be like, oh, but there are pro athletes who are vegan. Novak Djokovic and some other pro athletes as well are vegan. What you do not realize is that Novak Djokovic, along with the diet that he takes, vegan diet, takes a lot of supplements to compensate for the nutrients which are missing in a natural vegan diet. Although someone who's non-vegetarian, I guess you can say, the nutrients he like almost gets most of the nutrients from the diet itself. So the amount of supplements that he's forced to take is like far lower. It's not even comparable, the amount of the quantity, rather the quantity of supplements that one is supposed to take. But when it comes to just this argument of which diet one should opt for, when it comes to the discussion of health, I believe it's a no brainer again, because, well, these supplements people think these supplements are kind of cheap or something. In order for you to get all the nutrients from a vegan diet, this is considering the natural food and the supplements, it is very costly. It is super costly. You might think the non-vegetarian diet is like costly. You would be blown away to like find out the amount of cost one would incur trying to like gain all the nutrients from food as well as supplements to like compensate for the nutrients missing. So I think for a common man, it is not even logical for him to consider a vegan diet when it comes to, if at all, the his priority right now is to maximize performance, maximize health, and maximize productivity. And on all these 3 points, I have a lot of things to say, but I have had complaints about people telling me that I rant way too much, and the fact that I don't let you speak. So what do you think about what I just said? And obviously you would have a lot of points to add yourself, so please, stage is yours, Sakhi.
Yes. So meat eating, it definitely it's I'm not going to uh, go against the fact that meat is an incredible source of protein, because it definitely is. And there are pros to it, but I feel like there are more cons than there are pros, because when you look at red meat specifically, like what previously mentioned, that red meat is an incredible source of protein, but then it is also very, very high in saturated fats, saturated fats, yeah, which is a very, very major cause, a cause that leads to leads to heart diseases. Yeah, so as many of our viewers would already know, that the number one cause for death amongst people in the world are cardiovascular diseases, and the one major contributing factor is your diet, of course. And if you consume a lot of meat, especially red meat, then that becomes a very, very big reason for why you are not as healthy as you should be, because saturated fats, they clog your arteries, and which, yeah, basically lead to health complications. And they're also very high in cholesterol. So that these are some factors, but I feel like these are then also even when it comes to, if you want to discuss in terms of I don't know, are we discussing if meat eating is like morally right or not, because that's a very, very long debate.
Yeah, morally right or wrong, we'll get to that. But to just respond to all the claims that you made, actually, I partly agree with whatever you said. The cholesterol and the bad effects of eating red meat is very present. However, I would like to come in and say that most of the cholesterol that comes from red meat itself, it is proven to be healthy cholesterol, good cholesterol, and this is a very popular. I mean, this is a very important. And if people are just going to sit there on their asses, not do anything, and they just eat red meat, and they just consume all these protein heavy food sources, if they think that in and of itself is going to improve their lives, they are in for a very harsh reality check. All the health problems that you just mentioned, it's very likely that they catch it. I mean, if at all, they just sit on their asses and they just eat it. So, but the point that I'm making is for the person who wants to be more healthier. Like me personally, I'm a very active person physically. Like, for example, I go to the gym every single day. I go for a walk in the morning, I go to the gym in the evening. And then during the weekends, I go for badminton, sometimes football. And I'm active. Like every single day, I have some kind of physical activity. When I'm putting my body through that much physical stress, it becomes so much important that my body kind of demands the best form of food, like present, the best food, the best form of food possible. And I feel like that the red meat kind of like obviously provides. I think you obviously agree with the fact that red meat obviously provides, it's a very good source of protein. And the protein from red meat is like the best quality of protein itself. And the way I define the best quality of protein is that basically protein can be the way our body absorbs protein can be divided into 8 factors. And amongst these 8 factors, I'm not going to get into the specifics of it. Obviously, this is just bro science here, but people can obviously do their own research. This is not just bro science, by the way. This is science, but I've forgotten the actual names of amino acids, of course. Amino acids.
Yes.
8 amino acids. So 8 amino acids. Out of these 8 amino acids, apparently when you're consuming vegetarian sources of these protein foods, vegetarian sources do not let your body absorb all 8 of this. So when you're consuming a protein from vegetarian sources, your body only absorbs like 3 to 4, and all the rest is missing. But when it comes to beef in specific, and chicken and all the other things as well, they provide like 6 or 7. But when it comes to beef in specific, your body is really used to absorbing the protein right out of the meat.
Mm.
So
Get it.
which is like the best case scenario for anyone who goes to the gym, because we as gym goers, I'm kind of representing people who are like workout freaks and stuff. We consume everything based on grams of protein. Anything, even when I go to the hotel, I'm like googling how much grams of protein like this biryani have, how much grams of protein does chicken have, like 2 pieces of chicken and stuff. When I'm tracking things to that minute level, it's like I'm valuing what I'm eating, not just with the taste, but with, I'm like viewing it as a fuel as well, like as a source of fuel. So when I'm consuming something like red meat, I'm like the happiest, because it is, one, for tasty. Two, it is like the best thing that I could possibly be consuming for my muscles and for my health right now. So I'm like, I always have like a wide smile on my face, although I'm still convincing my family about how red meat does not cause cancer, does not cause heart attacks and stuff. I mean, obviously it does. I'm not refuting the fact that there's a possibility of that if you sit around
You,
doing nothing. If at all
and
you
if you
sit
also
around doing nothing.
consume it in moderation, I think it's fine.
But how do you define moderation? Like, what do you think
I
moderation
feel
is?
like what I read in a specific article is that you shouldn't be consuming more than 90 grams of red meat a day. It should be less than that. So yeah,
Okay,
that's
I'm not
moderation.
aware
It
of the
also depends on what your goals are, what your body goals are.
right.
Yeah, you
I'm
have to
not
do your
aware of
own
this.
research. Yeah.
Right, I'm not aware of the study that you're talking about, but I know a lot of people who just consume red meat as the only meal for the day. So they have only one meal for the day, and that is beef, steak, actually, steak to be very precise.
Mm.
So a huge steak, butter, salt, water. That's it. That's their only one meal for the day. And what I've observed, I had the same reaction that you gave right now. What I observed is, see, when I used to consume a lot of veggies for my breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
I had oats in specific for my breakfast. But people might think that oats is like super good for you. And I agree, oats is super good for you. But what you can observe when you're consuming oats in the morning, after consuming oats, you're like bloated. You're like mentally gone. You feel like you feel like you just ate like 5 or 6 sadhyas. For Malayalis, they would know what that is. A huge, it is super heavy. Like the oats itself is like super heavy. So just cutting out oats, which is seemingly one of the most healthiest forms of food that one can take, just cutting that out of my day has made me feel that much more productive, has made my brain that much more sharp. And I believe that this is just the first part of my transformation right now. I am going to try making my entire diet more meat based. However, there's a lot of convincing in my household to do, because, Indian family household, and they believe that beef causes, I mean, again, I'm not refuting that beef obviously causes all that, but they have to consider my physical goals and how active I am as well. So I started in one place, I ended up in another. Uh, what do you think about that?
That's
What do you think?
always
You have,
yeah.
right?
So
As always.
I consume oats on a regular basis, and I don't think I have the same opinion as yours in that regard. And I mostly eat oats when I'm working out. Usually, when I'm regular, I
One
don't.
second, a small plug-in. You know how when you're consuming something your entire life, you think that that is how you're supposed to feel. But when you substitute that for another thing and find out how that thing is making you feel, then you'll be like, oh my God, I thought this was the normal. I thought this was the norm. I thought the norm was my brain like, like completely disabled the entire day.
I get
Now
what
that,
you're saying.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah,
I have a
go
friend
ahead.
who's a complete gym freak, and he's a non-vegetarian eater. He's a full meat eater, but he makes sure that he consumes one bowl of oats every day after gym. in the evenings, and that has helped him a lot. I have to get into the details of how that happens. I'm not sure of that, but when when you mentioned this thing in specific, what were you saying? Only purely carnivore
Meat.
diet. Like, I think you would have read about Joe Rogan. He went on on like a carnivore diet for 30 days or so, just meat, just complete meat, and apparently he felt more energetic and happy, and he lost
Mhm.
weight and all of that. So have you read about that's after that I'll
I
go.
have seen that. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
like one of the very few people out of a very long list that say that. But go ahead.
Yeah, so that I was reading an article which refuted this. So the fact that he was on an all meat diet, he felt energetic, yes, okay, but it wasn't because he was consuming meat. Because it when okay, so when you completely cut out certain foods from your diet, so there was no vegetables, no fruits, no dry fruits, none of that, none of the green vegetables or any of that. So when you cut all of that out from your diet, you are bound to lose weight. And when that happens, you obviously get lighter and feel more energetic, as a result of which you feel happier and all of that. So the fact that he was the thing that he was claiming that he felt happier and energetic was not because he was consuming meat, because he had lost weight because of cutting out the other stuff. So I feel like it's not the meat that gives all of that energy, but if I feel like if there is a balance of all kinds of foods, that would work best for you, even if you're an athlete or like a normal person who does moderate exercise every day, or if you don't even do any kind of exercise, you don't have to worry too much about the calories you're consuming, because you're not losing anything. The energy levels, it's not going to matter as much. So I feel like that would be my argument. That's what I've read.
Yeah,
What do you
what
have
you
to say?
said, two part. Yeah. I divide my reply into two parts. The first part is responding to your friend consuming oat in a bowl. See, I'll be very clear when I say this. When it comes to your body in specific, just taking your body into consideration, oats is good. But
Mm-hmm.
what I'm also taking into consideration is not my body itself, but my brain as well, and how productive I am throughout the day. If
Mm-hmm.
my goal as of now is to just get a six pack in like 2 or 3 months, and I did not have to study for my exams, or I did not have to post YouTube, or I did not have internship work. If I did not have all these commitments, if my only goal was physical goals, oats 100% of the time. It's super good. But oats is super heavy that it does not give you room to like do everything else. It gives you, oh my god, I cannot even describe. I feel like I need a power nap after I take my breakfast. And just cutting out oats from the milkshake that I take every single day has just made me like, has just given me so much energy. I feel like I've just taken so much energy back from that one thing that was consuming all the energy. And for the
Mm.
second point that you made about Joe Rogan going on the only meat diet and reporting that he felt way more energetic than normal, that's not just Joe Rogan. I'll mention all these people, all the people who have gone on this diet. Specifically, only four people. You won't like one of them. One is Joe
Jordan
Rogan,
Peterson.
not Jordan Peterson, not
Like
Jordan
he
Peterson.
did, no?
Yeah, of course him. Joe Rogan, Andrew Tate, Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson, and Mikhaila Peterson, his daughter. Now, I'd
Mm-hmm.
like to I'd like to tell you a little bit about Mikhaila Peterson's story because it is very relevant. Mikhaila Peterson has rheumatoid arthritis. So,
Mm-hmm.
for people who do not know what rheumatoid arthritis is, it's basically a joint disease which basically takes away your will to live. To put it in a nutshell, it basically takes away your will to live, and it basically renders you completely immobile. It renders you completely unable to go about your everyday activities and to just go about your everyday life. This person, Michaela Peterson, was advised by her doctors to go on to a restrictive diet, in the sense that she
Mm-hmm.
was she was supposed to cut out parts of her diet and just take and they she observed the fact that when she cut out parts of her diet, the amount of little food she consumed all her symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis was at bay. In the sense that if she ate less, all her symptoms was less as well. But what she came to find out, and this is a very logical question as well, is that you obviously cannot keep cutting out parts of your diet in order to like make your symptoms go away. You cannot starve to death. So what can you possibly do? So this person, Mikhaila Peterson, out of sheer desperation, what she did, she was like, nothing is working. So why not I just go on this pure meat diet for a month and see what happens. Believe it or not only did her symptoms go away, she has been on this only meat diet, which means only meat once a day. Or I don't know about how often she eats, but it's basically only meat. She doesn't consume carbs. She doesn't consume veggies. She doesn't consume fruits. Only meat, only steak, salt, and water. Steak, salt, butter, and water. For 3 years. And she looks like one of the most healthiest people that I've ever seen. Her skin is glowing. She's like 40 or something, and her energy levels are still high. That's not to say that all 40-year-olds are supposed to have their energy levels really low, but to see her be 40 and have her energy levels that high, and to be honest, when you see her, you do not even like realize how old she is until you like see her age or Google her age or something. This is not just Mikhaila Peterson. When I went on Quora and I searched this specific topic, everyone who are like 56, 60, 61, 65, 70, people who are older, they reported to have like received the same compliments from people. The fact that they're like 60 and people like think they're like in their early 50s and like early 40s and stuff. So meat-based diet, I know the way we were taught in schools and stuff, it is not supposed to work on paper. But I feel like one part of what we were taught in schools as well is like flawed. The entire food pyramid that we were taught, I think everyone knows about the food pyramid that I'm talking about. It's a complete scam. It puts cereal on the bottom, fruits and veggies. I mean, this is the food pyramid in a nutshell. It puts cereal on the bottom, or rather whole grain food, so rice, bread, whatever you name, carbohydrates. Above that, they put fruit and vegetables, and above that, you put meat. Meat is like one category below fat and oils and all these things which are bad for you, which is like appalling. Which is like they recommend you take 2 to 3 slices. I mean, if you're considering your entire diet out of like, if you're framing your entire diet around just slices, they recommend meat 2 to 3 slices, and they recommend that you take carbohydrates 6 to 11 slices. I don't know about you, but I personally, where I am in my life right now, and after researching all the things about carbohydrates, I can tell you for a fact that carbs in and of itself is like one of the things that I hate the most at this point in time. Because I would rather get my energy from healthy fats than healthy carbohydrates. Healthy carbohydrates meaning bread, meaning rice, all these things, they clog your brain. I cannot explain it to you. I mean, obviously, it doesn't matter how much I explain, people still won't believe me. But I feel like this is one of the things that people should experience on their own. The way they get their energy from just protein and just healthy fats. But carbohydrates, the food pyramid itself, putting carbohydrates on the bottom, like how people should like prioritize carbohydrates as this one size fits all. If at all the diet should only consume one thing, it's carbs only. I feel like that's like a humongous scam. That can also tie in with actually no, that's supposed to be a conspiracy. I'm going into conspiracy theories at this point.
Just mention it because that'll be a cliffhanger.
I feel like that's just a way in which society or people just try to take the energy out of people, so that they don't rise up and like question the system and like question a million other different bullshit things which are happening on the world, right? Like for example, COVID and masks and vaccines for that reason. I mean, vaccines were like proven to be not as useful as people claimed it to be. It turns out vaccines have way more side effects than benefits. That is just one of the things that society doesn't want you to know about. And I feel like this entire food pyramid. Did you know that food pyramid wasn't actually proposed by scientists? but
Then
rather the agricultural society. It was presented. The entire food pyramid was presented by an agricultural organization. Very interesting. Agricultural organization. It's not even a bunch of scientists. It's an organization. Prepare. I mean, they literally put it forth to like sell you products about like cereal. Obviously, this is part of the conspiracy. People can do their own research on this. I obviously believe all this, but obviously you can't say all this on the internet because people will grill you from like 10 different directions, and I don't have the information to refute all of them because I frankly
right,
don't care about this enough. But but just putting carbs on the like just labeling carbs as one of the most important food sources that one should consume, I feel like that's just appalling. What do you have to say for that? I'm sorry, I'm just on a huge rant there.
I just feel like I still feel like there are when it comes to meat eating, there are more cons than there are pros, because there's not just uh, our health in consideration, but people don't take into account the environment, because it I'll get into the details. So for all those people who don't know what carbon footprint is, it's basically uh, out of our actions, how much of it we contribute in the emissions, emissions of greenhouse gases, how our actions contribute to that. Greenhouse gases is very, very harmful for the environment. So basically, when you consume meat, you're basically contributing to the emissions, and that is because if you look at plant-based meat, which that emits up to 90% fewer greenhouse gases, and it's just that one plant-based meal, if you consume, that can save the same amount of carbon emissions that it takes to drive a car across the country. And when you talk about processed meat, that requires that the process itself, it requires a lot of energy. So there was this one thing, sorry, there was this one thing which said that it takes about 31.5 kilowatt hours of energy to produce just 1 pound of beef. And that's just little under the amount of energy that our fridge uses to run for one whole month. And when you talk about we talk about replacing meat based diet with plant based, because there are alternatives available, which you might argue that there are not. But if you properly, if there is proper composition, if you plan your diet well, then it is possible. And plant based sources of protein like beans, nuts, uh, all of this requires much less processing, and they're also a lot more energy efficient. So I feel like even when it comes to the environment, now, okay, plant-based, you would argue that you will need more land to grow plants and grow different kinds of vegetables and fruits and all of this. But when you look at the stats, meat, beef, okay, so for that you will need animals. You need to make sure that you care for them, you take care of them until you keep them healthy, you provide them with adequate food and water and fodder and all of that. And then once they are of that stage, you kill them, and you basically obtain meat from that, healthy fresh meat, which is good for you. But we are not noticing the amount of land that goes in producing that fodder for the animals. So you actually are using up a lot of land just for producing that one piece of meat. You know what I mean? You're producing for humans who consume vegetarian food, and non-vegetarians as well who consume vegetarian food. But you're also producing for the animals, which are going to be, served to people as a meal. So basically,
Hmm.
yeah, I feel like there are a lot of factors that just point to the fact that it's better to switch to a plant-based meal, in my opinion.
Makes sense, understandable.
Mhm.
But the fact that you said about the land which is required to produce 1 pound of beef, soya is very, very close. It's a very close second when it comes to the land it
Mm.
consumes. to produce the same amount of soya. I mean, the same amount of soya.
Really, how?
So yeah, I mean, this is a statistic. You can go look at it. This is
No,
a
1 pound
recent
of
statistic.
beef was, I said in some other context, but I was just saying in general because you're producing producing food not just for people but also for animals that you're going to be consuming later, right?
Hmm.
So it's just double the land that you will need, or more than that.
Hmm.
So
Well, I
that's
don't
what I
know.
was referring.
The study that I looked at just looked at the sum total of the land which is used for producing all this, and beef and soya were like two of the products that required the most amount of land to produce.
But
And
why
I
soya?
feel like if I have no idea. I mean, I just looked at the study. I think a few months back when
Mhm.
these topics were very hot in society. But I mean, if you look at it in terms of both of them being equally bad in terms of land consumption,
Mhm.
beef, I feel like if it's equally bad and if it's almost equal in terms of how bad it is, that kind of gets nullified, and the next argument becomes how healthy is one than the other. And I believe in that comparison, soya does not stand a chance because, well, for one, soya is testosterone, estrogenic in nature. Forgot about the
I
hormone for a
am
second.
not okay.
Soya is very estrogenic in nature. I think that is one of the most well-known facts about soya.
Mhm.
Soya and flax seeds, to be very specific,
Mhm.
amidst all the other food sources, but soya in specific, it is very, very estrogenic. So much to the point where women are actually encouraged to eat soya, and men who want to increase their testosterone levels are actually advised against soya. And if people want to refute that by saying that, well, soya also provides like a good source of protein, I have two
Mhm.
arguments against that. One is protein is not the only thing which is important for a male. Protein and testosterone, both of them play a role. And secondly, well, I already discussed about how vegetarian sources, the absorption of protein itself is like it's not even comparable to the protein which is available in meat. So if your only concern is the protein that you're missing out from soya, I believe there is a lot of food sources out there, obviously meat based or even vegetarian based for that matter, like eggs, for example, that promotes testosterone, that increases testosterone a lot as well, and that provides like a healthy 4 grams of protein. So for people who don't want to miss out on soya, there are a lot of other products which also improve your testosterone in the process, which is that much more important when it comes to building your body.
Mhm.
So I think when it comes to this argument, according to me, if you want to compare the land which is used by beef, the land which is used by soya is equally as bad. So I feel like that nullifies each other. So the next argument comes down to the next point of discussion comes down to which one is healthier. And I believe soya does not even stand a chance when it comes to beef. And see,
No,
your entire attitude about meat be like only consuming meat or like in the day being bad, your entire attitude, I understand it. If anything, I had the same attitude as you. I found it to be genuinely ridiculous until I started researching about it more, and until I like started actually finding out about such a diet. Like I believe the carnivore diet is only a very small extension of the keto diet. Keto still includes fruits and vegetables. Carnivore
Mhm.
goes that step further and like completely takes away the fruits and vegetables as well. That is also this case wherein people were absorbed to be feeling like, these people, they were on a very carnivore focused diet. They took apples, which was seemingly good for us, and it is good for us. They took apples and they immediately observed how their brain was getting clogged by these apples. Like if you're just consuming apples every single day, you would not realize this. But when you are consuming meat only, and when you are so used to the effects of that diet, and when you switch over to this diet, and when you take very small portions of the diet which is considered normal in this day and age, you very quickly realize how abnormal normal is in this day and age. How abnormal. Like I'll tell you another fact about about Indians, which is so abnormal, which is something which is very normal. The breakfast that we eat, idli, dosa, pongal, and all these things, I love it. But they are empty sources of food that we are consuming. They do not have anything worth for her
Mm.
body. I mean, it has carbohydrates, which will take you through the day. But amidst all that, it doesn't provide you with anything healthy to like grow muscles or for your brain to stay sharp. It doesn't provide anything like that. It only provides carbohydrates. And I've also already talked about how carbohydrates in and of itself is like bad. At least according to me, you can do your due diligence, and I like actually encourage people to do their due diligence. But when it comes to this diet, only having carbohydrates, something that we Indians very actively consume, we South Indians to be very specific. I don't know, man. I can get into a debate with a lot of people, and I've obviously convinced a lot of people, but still, I mean, I have no idea how we got here. And I believe this started with the food pyramid at the start of the discussion. The food pyramid is at the top of all these problems, and all these problems are just byproducts of that main problem, which was put forth in the early 2000s. So yeah, I believe the meeting's gonna kick us out. As usual, Sakhi, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you, especially about these topics. I believe, well, we do not have time to find common ground, I believe, but someplace we can find common ground is that, well, for people who are not finding that much stressful, for people who are not finding their physical life that much more stressful, for people who are not involved in physical activities that much, I believe a very balanced diet with meat and all the other veggies and all that things can be helpful. But I believe still a person who with extreme productive needs, a person who needs to be productive, and a person who has actual he needs his brain power throughout the day. I believe the carnivore diet is the way to go.
So there was just one last question that I wanted from you. Um, so I'm not very sure if meat eating or a purely carnivore diet would work in the long run because there are arguments, to the that support the other side, that a balanced plant eating, plant based diet, or a slightly, diet which involves both plants and meats, that's way more beneficial than a strictly carnivore diet. I asked this question because we've only seen people who have gone on an all carnivore diet for 30 days or a little more than that, mostly not for a very long time. And they have seen changes, but I'm not sure if this would work in the long run. And if you have to say anything in this regard, then go ahead.
Okay, firstly, before I answer your question, I would like to ask you another question to better understand your question itself, which is when people talk about how veganism or vegan diet or a balanced diet rather is better, what do they mean by better? Like, what are the objectives that people aim for? Is it just physical health?
It's not just physical health, but morally, when you look at the environment, all of that aspects taking into if we take into account, then a plant-based diet is way more beneficial for an individual, for the society, and for the environment as a whole. It's what I have learned.
Okay, so before I answer your question, I'll answer this time 100%. We need to have a part two on the same discussion, because again, the point you mentioned about the moral discussion between meat eating and veganism, that's very interesting discussion. I have a lot of points to add on that, so I believe it is important that we have a part two for this discussion.
Done.
So now to answer your question about whether a carnivore diet is sustainable, all the people that I was referring to, I did not even know that Joe Rogan followed that diet for like 30 days to see how it was. Actually, I've heard about it, but considering the opinions of people, I only considered the opinions of people who've been like following this diet for years on end. Mikhaila Peterson, the person that I'm talking about, Jordan Peterson's daughter, she has been following it since, I don't know. She's been following it since when she was a teenager. So like 2 or 3 decades. And people who are 60, they report following the carnivore diet itself for like 5 to 6 years, and they themselves like report feeling like super energetic, and they themselves like report having aged like fine wine following this diet. So when it comes to a long-term diet, and when it comes to the question of if or is a carnivore diet sustainable, I would like to say absolutely 100%. I believe carnivore diet is, I would go as far as saying carnivore diet is an extension of the vegan diet, in the sense that the vegan diet is it's very popular to make you feel at ease with your body, and it is very popular to make you feel peaceful in your body. But I believe the carnivore diet goes a little bit further, in the sense that it makes your brain sharp at all times of day. And most of the carnivore diets are also, I mean, this is a very extreme form of carnivore diet, but some extreme forms of carnivore diets include people eating or having a meal only once a day. I do not recommend that. I haven't done my research on that. But if you're going to that extremes as well, energy levels when you're only consuming one meal a day, it's like it cannot be compared to any other alternative. So when it comes to if it is it long term? Absolutely. And I would like to just rest my case for this part. I would like to just rest my case by saying that meat eating is just better than okay, meat eating is better than vegan products, provided you are physically very active and provided you do not sit on your ass and just do nothing all day. So if you're a physically strenuous person, and you have goals to accomplish for your life, like you have physical goals and other materialistic and actually intellectual goals as well, I guess you can say. If you have those goals like that, I believe the carnivore diet is the absolute best diet that one can follow, because not only does it ensure muscle development, it also ensures the sharpness of your brain. You can add your closing thoughts, and I think we can continue this discussion in part two, where we discuss the moral aspects of veganism and meat eating.
I feel like there are a lot more aspects to this, and there are things that I can also add, but I will need a bit more research from my end, because then, you know, I don't want to just blabber shit. But I'm pretty sure that there are things that I would want to bring up in the next one, and we're gonna do a part two pretty soon. And yeah, do you want to conclude? I started the video.
Yeah, sure. Fine.
Go ahead.
So, guys, that was the 11th episode of Polarizing Dialogue, wherein we discussed about veganism and meat eating. I know we were fumbly and stuff during the video itself, but I believe that is because we have been pretty rusty over the last few days, and we have not filmed and we have not talked about such topics, or at least I haven't spoke about. Well, I've been just silent as in general for the last few days, so I've not spoken at all. So the fluency and the blabbering, I promise, will not continue throughout the next parts of the video. I mean, the next part of the video itself, and for the future videos. But yeah, I mean, it was a pleasure, if anything, talking to you, Sakhi, as it always is.
Same.
I believe, I hope that you guys have learned anything from this, or have learned something from this. If you guys want any questions or any specific aspects of the topic itself to be clarified by either me or Sakhi, just leave them down in the comments. With that said, I will see you guys in the next part of veganism versus meat eating. Thank you so much, and it's bye-bye from both of us.